Hey, freedom lovers, this is William Moore, and you're watching Beyond the Ties That Bind. Thanks for joining me. I pray that everyone is having as good of a day as you can possibly have. Now, please, before I get going, like, share, and subscribe. Subscribe to the channel, share the videos, share the channel. I want to be able to communicate with as many people as possible, and the idea that I'm going to communicate to them is the idea of absolute freedom. Absolute freedom. And what we are experiencing right now is an attack on freedom unlike ever before. So I want to get this information that I pass along to as many people as possible. So like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, please, and tell your friends about it, especially those sheep who are walking around wearing masks out in public right now. So this is my second attempt at completing this video. The first time I got a little passionate. There was snot flying, spit flying, things flying. But right now I am angry. I'm upset about what's going on in my country. We are experiencing tyranny like never before. We are living under the control of a despotic government from the top down. If you like Donald Trump, I don't care. That's just the way it is. He is nothing more than a banker puppet. They are attacking our freedom. They are attacking our privacy. They want no longer to have a nation or a country. Sorry, I don't like using the term nation. A country of individuals. They want everyone to be just another brick in the wall. They want serfs in this oligarchy. They want to be the oligarchs. They want to control everything you do. They want to determine where you work. They want to determine who you socialize with. They want to determine possibly even who you marry. Sounds far-fetched, but 4 months ago, what we're seeing right now would have sounded far-fetched. So they want to control every aspect of your life. They no longer want individuals. They want a working class, worker bees that will do their bidding, do the dirty work for them while they live off of and enjoy the fruits of your labors. We are living in a fascist society. Socialism, fascism, the fusion thereof. I like to call it fascism. They are attacking our freedoms. They're attacking our freedoms like never before. They've been attacking freedom ever since 1787 with the drafting of the Constitution in Philadelphia. And many people think that the Constitution is a freedom document. I beg to differ. Go back and watch a few of my episodes concerning the Constitution. It was drafted by nothing more than bankers and attorneys. Anytime an attorney writes something down on a piece of paper, you can bet your bottom dollar that somebody somewhere is having their freedoms trampled upon. So, I'm going to start this video with a clip from the late, great George Carlin.
Sir, wait, sir. When fascism comes to America, it will not be in brown and black shirts. It will not be with jack boots. It will be Nike sneakers and smiley shirts. Smiley, smiley. The fascism... Germany lost the Second World War. Fascism won it. Believe me, my friend.
Fascism is when corporations become the government.
Yes.
And
that is so true. And that's exactly what we have. We have a banking cartel, a criminal element. Now, our government is a criminal element working for a larger criminal element, but we have a banking cartel that's using the government to do their bidding. This banking cartel, which is a corporation, is now using the government to buy small businesses, medium-sized businesses, and even large businesses through the back door. The Federal Reserve is becoming the buyer and lender of last resort. Everything going on right now is designed to control people, is designed to control every last human being on this planet. Now, H.L. Mencken, I'm really enjoying reading this man. He stated the whole aim of practical politics is to keep the populace alarmed. Oh my goodness. And hence clamorous to be led to safety by menacing it with endless series of hobgoblins, all of them imaginary. So they want to menace you with an endless series of hobgoblins, all of them imaginary. Enter the coronavirus. It's imaginary, just like government. It's in your head. Government consists of buildings, papers, and people. The rest is in your head. And coronavirus consists of stories on mainstream media and government propaganda. The rest is in your head. And what they're doing, the whole aim of practical politics, he states, is to keep the populace alarmed and hence clamorous to be led to safety. And this is the same game they've been playing since 1787. George Washington wrote a letter that went out to each one of the state ratifying conventions. This letter was attached to the Constitution. It was before the Bill of Rights ever came into existence. It was part of the Constitution. It's a letter of transmittal. And he stated, it is often difficult to draw with precision the rights which must be surrendered and the rights which must be preserved. Now, why did he talk about rights which must be surrendered? He stated that when a person gives up rights, they're doing it for the safety of all. Go back, type in U.S. Constitution to Google, read the Constitution, keep scrolling down till you get to the letter of transmittal, read the whole letter. I've read it before on many broadcasts. Read the whole letter. They're always using community and safety. And when they use those terms, community and safety, they're making an end run on your freedom, your rights. They're using safety always. They've been using it since 1787. Don't tell me that the Constitution's a freedom document. The Constitution is not a freedom document. It was drafted by bankers and lawyers. And anytime an attorney scribbles something on a piece of paper, you can bet your bottom dollar that somebody somewhere is being screwed out of their freedom. So, we have right now contact tracers which are going to be deployed all across America, all 50 states. And they're going to use the National Guard. I thought the National Guard's role in this was going to just be a health role only. But now they're going to be part of law enforcement, or should we say flaw enforcement, because anything the government does is a major flaw. So you have article that comes from Freedom Articles, and it talks about an article that shames those who refuse the contact tracing app Bologna Safe. This is the name of it. I try and avoid saying that word right there so I don't get a community strike and it doesn't alert the algorithm so we can keep this channel up. But anyway, it talks about this app, the new surveillance and privacy violating app. It's launched by the Australian government, has exceeded over 5 million downloads in a country whose population is around 25 million. That means 20% of Australians have bought the fear and propaganda around coronavirus to the extent that they would willingly give up their privacy and freedom for a bit of purported security. There we go again, giving up freedom for security, giving up privacy for security. Go back to what George Washington said. I mean, and that was the beginning of the government screwing people out of anything, screwing people out of freedom in order to give the government control, and the government promising safety, which it cannot deliver. So, the back end of the app runs on the Amazon Web Services AWS platform, allowing Of all people, Jeff Bezos, Amazon Corporation, and thus the US government with which it is joined at the hip to potentially seize the data of Australian individuals. The coronavirus crisis has had a fair share of propagandistic terms. The new normal, flatten the curve, contact tracing, a buzz phrase meaning nothing more than surveillance. And now the name for the new app, Bologna Safe. Yet another typical example of the way governments exploit safety to become tyrannical. We're only violating and enslaving you to protect public health and safety. I mean, come on, you've got to go for that. It's for public health and safety. The same thing that George Washington referenced when he was sending out his letter for states to accept the Constitution, this new behemoth that would be created by the Constitution, the central government, which would tax and control people forever. So, who controls the data on this app? The app is a clear power grab, specifically a data grab, and a way to accelerate the surveillance agenda. So, this contact tracing model, right here it says this contact tracing model is also not open source software and as such is not subject to audit or oversight. So anyone can use this. Anyone can get hold of the information. As it has currently been deployed in Singapore, it also places a government authority in control of the transfer of valuable contact and connection details. So the government's going to know who you've been in contact with, who you're socializing with. So it then warns about the voluntary becoming permanent without realizing this is the exact way governments operate when they roll out tyrannical regulations. They weaken resistance by initially making them temporary and voluntary, only to make them mandatory later. Can we say Social Security or income tax? Nothing the government does is temporary. Nothing the government does is going to go away, especially when it's something that's a control. I mean, we've been told for the last 4 years that they're going to get rid of Obamacare. No, they're never going to get rid of Obamacare. It's a political football that both sides will use until the end of the United States government, which is very soon. I want to see government abolished. And this is why, because anytime you have government, it's this type of crap that happens. Okay, all of you out there saying that, well, I don't know what we would do without a government, well, it would be much better than the crap we're going through right now. You think you need a government? This is the type of criminal stuff that goes on underneath government. Government to control the mind, to control you. Government and freedom cannot coexist. A life that is void of freedom is not worth living, because if you do not have freedom, that means you're being controlled. And your life is of no value if you're being controlled. The only value it has is to the person who's controlling you. Wake up! So if we go to some of the other articles here that I want to point out just real quick, it says Washington State readies to deploy contact tracers, and they're actually going to do this by deploying the National Guard. So they're actually going to deploy the National Guard, and they will be the contact tracers. Iowa Guard soldiers deployed for coronavirus contact tracing. You've got it in Washington, you've got it in Iowa. So some states nearly double plans for contact tracers since NPR surveyed them 10 days ago. And in this article, it also talks about how in the states and the District of Columbia, they're expanding their contact tracing. They want to have 30,000 more people than what they originally planned to be contact tracers. And they talk about the National Guard doing the contact tracing. Just go to Google, type in contact tracing National Guard. You'll see that the National Guard's going to be used for contact tracing. They're also going to be used for mandatory testing. They're going to be used for mandatory vaccinations. You know, Trump stated that he was doing what? He was mobilizing the military in order to carry out vaccinations countrywide. That's an assault on freedom. I'm not taking a vaccination. I'm not even taking a test. Nobody's going to mandate that I do anything I do not want to do. Now, if you want to take the vaccination, an unproven vaccination that's being sped to market, you go right ahead. We are living in a time of ultimate surveillance, and we have people being conditioned to narc on their neighbors, to snitch on their friends. And now you're going to have contact tracing. You're going to have people whose purpose it is to watch other people and see who they come in contact with, see who they're socializing with at their jobs, in their neighborhoods, when they go out. That's going to be their job. We are in 1984 on steroids. Orwell could not have imagined this. Of course, he wouldn't have been able to imagine it because the technology available to us today was not available to him, but he did a pretty good job. Now 1984 is no longer a fiction novel. It is now a non-fiction documentary. So, we have, National Guard is going to be deployed for contact tracing. Several states are preparing to ease restrictions related to the coronavirus lockdowns. Other states have extended the lockdowns, while a handful of states like South Dakota never imposed a statewide lockdown at all. And why don't we hear about South Dakota in the mainstream media? Now, if South Dakota had an explosion of coronavirus cases, then of course you would hear about it and they would say, see, social distancing, lockdowns, they work. But South Dakota proves the opposite. They don't work. And last but not least, I'm going to get into this. The government could enforce who you're allowed to socialize with via the tracking app. So, in the new normal of social distancing, governments could dictate who you're allowed to socialize with and punish wrongdoers via a smartphone tracking app. Yes, you'll have your social credit score now. And if you socialize with the wrong person, you're going to get points deducted from your social credit score. That's control. That's an attack on freedom. Freedom is one of the greatest gifts our Creator could give us. And we're allowing this to be taken away from us by other individuals, other human beings. Governments are now considering a post-lockdown world of social bubbles, which the UK translates into a proposal to allow people to visit 10 friends and family. They're going to lock you down and say, okay, when you do visit, you can only visit this person, this person, this person, and now you're only going to be able to socialize with this person. So, we're going to determine who that is. We're going to determine who you marry. We're going to determine where you work. We're going to determine where you eat. We're going to determine what you watch. Got a lot of people out there right now wearing those masks, doing that social distancing, that'd be okay with, as long as they're promised safety. So you have, the Belgian government is now considering permitting people to have a designated list of people they can visit in order to keep the risk of transmitting coronavirus low. There is no coronavirus. And if there is, it's nothing to be alarmed over. I mean, Deborah Birx even stated that if a person dies of heart disease, cancer, leukemia, diabetes, but they have the coronavirus, they'll be counted as a coronavirus death. And then if you look at the discrepancy between the Johns Hopkins fear porn map and the numbers on the CDC, you're talking 20 to 30,000 people discrepancy. The CDC number is much lower. And then flu this year, influenza, non-existent. Does that strike anybody else besides me as funny? Not funny, huh? Funny queer. So, you're going to have people that you're going to have governments that use this tracking app, and they're going to enforce these social bubbles. The government could use smartphone apps to track and trace bubble violators. You can envision in the not too distant future a dystopia type of state where you're going to have enforced social distancing, where the mandatory app will deduct points from your social credit score if you venture outside of your house once too often or meet with an unauthorized friend. I'm sure that I will probably not be an authorized friend of anyone on the face of the earth. Anybody who loves freedom, you're going to be singled out. Anyone who refuses the vaccination, you're going to be singled out. That's just how it's going to be. Now, the government in charge of something like this, in charge of the social bubbles, in charge of, determining, if you've crossed the line and if you visited with somebody unauthorized, if you have gone outside of your house one too many times. I mean, the government in charge of this, what could go wrong? I mean, they've been in charge of some stuff in the past. 5-year-old boy detained by the TSA, he was 5-year-old boy taken into custody and thoroughly searched at SeaTac. Canadian 6-year-old still on no-fly list. Another 5-year-old on the no-fly list. Meet Sam Adams. So you've got all of these different stories about how any type of government program like that, you're going to walk right into errors, mistakes. But it's not about that. Who cares? If we allow it to get to that level, then we deserve what we have coming. We need to stand up and fight right now for our freedom, because our freedoms are being taken away. We do not need a government. Government and freedom cannot coexist, and no piece of paper is going to ever be able to guarantee or protect your freedoms. Try holding that piece of paper up when the National Guard comes to your front door to force you to take a vaccination. They're going to walk right over that piece of paper. The Constitution is only mentioned when it's politically expedient. And the Constitution was put in place it was signed off on by 39 men, all of which who were attorneys and bankers. Now, if we had attorneys and bankers get together today, and they were going to get together to create a document which would govern the country, there would be a lot of suspicion about those proceedings. Now, back then, there was no suspicion about the proceedings. You know why? Because the proceedings were conducted in secrecy. Yeah, that's right. If the Constitution was such a great thing, why did they have to conduct their meetings in secrecy? Why were the notes, most of them, destroyed after the meeting? Why? Because the document they created would be used to create, the document they drafted would be used to create a strong central government, which would then oversee the Constitution, which then would determine which laws would be amended, meaning to be removed, added to, or improved upon. And the only reason they created it was so they would have the power of unlimited taxation and be able to raise up an army which would enforce those laws concerning taxation and collect So freedom has been under attack, and we've been brainwashed to believe all the myths around the founding of this country. Freedom's been under attack since 1787. Actually, before that, I can talk about what the Continental Congress did under the Articles of Confederation by seizing land of people who actually fought in the War for Independence because they couldn't pay their taxes. They tried to pay their taxes with the script that the government issued to them, but when they tried to pay their taxes with that script, the government said, no, we'll only accept silver and gold. And when they couldn't pay in silver and gold because they couldn't exchange that worthless script for silver and gold, the government then confiscated their property. And the list goes on and on. The crimes of this government go all the way back to 1776. And they were not protesting taxation because it was greater taxation after the war. After the United States became a nation or a corporation. And that's what it is, and that's what it started out as. Oh yes, 1871 officially became a corporation of the crown. But before that, it was a corporation back in 1787. That's when the corporation was established. But the crimes against the Native Americans, the crimes against those in the whiskey trade, the crimes against those who helped fight to establish this country. The list goes on and on and on. The beginning of this nation, or this country, is nothing to be proud of. That's why Patrick Henry, Samuel Adams, Richard Henry Lee, George Mason all stood in opposition to the Constitution. When the Constitutional Convention was called, Patrick Henry refused to go, and he stated, I smell a rat, and prophetically so. He was correct. Today, we smell many rats, and they're coming for our freedom. They want to destroy privacy. They want to destroy individuality. They want to take away every last thing. And they're doing it through the guise of this coronavirus, and they're going to bring about an economic collapse to where you're going to have to beg the government for everything you need. And the government's going to say, we'll give it to you as long as you take our vaccination and then use our new digital currency or whatever currency they come up with, or probably already came up with. It's time to take a stand, unless being a slave sounds good. Yes, we've been slaves, especially since 1913. But it's going to get much worse. Now they want to take complete physical ownership of you. They want to watch everything you do. They want to trace everything you do. Everyone is getting their information from media and the government. The government puts out the information. The mainstream media publishes the information for the government, and none of it can be trusted. People who say they don't trust the government or the mainstream media are now trusting the government and the mainstream media about the coronavirus. If you go to High Impact Vlogs, he has a really good series on CNN. The different things that took place, where Nancy Grace is being interviewed by a lady, and they make it look like a remote interview, but they're in the same parking lot. And then there's Charles Jaco and the Operation Desert Storm fiasco, where it looks like the Three Stooges -1 are in an area that's being bombed in Baghdad, or I forget exactly where they are, but are in Saudi Arabia. They lie over and over and over again, and people buy into the lie over and over and over again. You know, it's bad enough to be fooled once, but when the American populace can be fooled over and over and over again, you see them out there. You see them wearing the mask. You see them buying the lie. When you can be fooled over and over and over, especially people who, when they're polled, say that 80% don't trust the government or the media, but then they're going to put on a mask and they're going to social distance because of information coming from the government and media. That's ridiculous. You know, shame on people who can be fooled so much and who trust government. Anyway, that's what's going on. National Guard going to be called up to be contact tracers. Then you're going to have contact tracers that are going to be, hired because, of course, we've destroyed so many jobs. So now they're going to create jobs as spies. People are going to spy on one another. America's gone if we allow this to happen. There has to be more than pockets of resistance to be able to destroy this, because this is not for your good. This is not for your safety. This is for an elite group, or they think they're elite, to be able to control you, to be able to take away the freedom that the Creator gave to you. It's time to fight. He expects you to fight for your freedom. This is William Moore. Please like, share, and subscribe. And I want to leave you with this. This is a quote from Thomas Jefferson. Now, I'm not a big Jefferson fan. He's a hypocrite. At one point, he was against the Constitution and some of the laws that were contained in the Constitution, but then when he became president, he used those same laws that he was against his enemies. So I'm not for that at all. But he did state this: if we can but prevent the government from wasting the labors of the people, and that's what contact tracing does, it wastes the labors of the people, under the pretense of taking care of them, they must become happy. So that's what they're doing. Under the pretense of taking care of people, they're going to waste labor. They're going to waste tax dollars that they steal from each and every one of us. Well, there are some of us that have figured out a way to. Anyway, the government is opposed to freedom, and they will take you down. It's time to take a stand. Time for every individual to take a stand for freedom, to set in your mind what you will do at that moment that they come and they want to physically take possession of you. What are you going to do? And hopefully people stand before that. Freedom is not a document. Freedom comes from the heart, given by the Creator, is set in the mind, and is carried out through the actions of the individuals who love freedom. And I love freedom. And I know if you watch this far, you love freedom too. So, freedom lovers, until next time, this is William Moore for Beyond the Ties That Bind. Love everybody. Peace.